And now the floor is officially open to questions. Yours.
Wait, I want to. Do you guys know that Nick Dembski has a book of poems? That it's like.
Old news, man!
I'm sorry, but it's not old news to me because it's really, really good. And like, it's like you have informed, but it's also like super reckless and awesome, and I love it. And on the back of it is a letter to Nick, written from Representative Paul Ryan. Congratulating him. I just buy it.
Thank you for the comment.
It's eponymous. Right? Is that the word for being named after yourself?
That's correct.
Right. Anyway, I wanted to.
But enough about me. Someone smart, ask a smart question. Yes. So we got somebody who knows what's
I can visit. So when you find yourself, this is directed to you, I forgot. When you find yourself having to uphold the image of a certain culture and having to perform in a cultural format, do you find that limiting or free?
Well, I have poems on every subject there's so many poems on various subjects, so when they did a call for Latina monologues, I had stuff. If they did a call for feminism, I'd have it. If they did a call for political love poems, I'd have it. So there's not, and it's interesting because I was working with people who were half my age, and there's certain terms that I would use that are like old school Iowa farming terms that they had no idea, like cash on the barrel, that I'd have to explain what that meant, So it's interesting because I understand how far I've come with my family, and then I understand where they're coming from, because there's a lot of things that the Americanisms, the terms that I take for granted, they didn't get. So it's actually very free to be completely 100% Latina, because you don't get that many opportunities, and we were the only Mexican family in a fairly wealthy suburb growing up. So I am used to being the other. So my day job allows me to work with youth, and so getting them to explore their own voices and their own identity has been really interesting too, but it makes me reach as well. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's hard to limit yourself to one thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially when you're really curious. And I just feel like I'm continually learning and like listening to great poets and participating with audiences and going to readings, and just, there's so much there. And when we do the poetry marathon at Woodland Pattern, it'll blow you away, because every 5 minutes there's someone else with a new perspective, and it's really amazing that there's so many good artists in this area.
Do you know what Woodland Pattern is?
Woodland Pattern Book Center, I will say I am on the board, so.
Promote it!
I'm promoting it. We do. We actually are lots of things. We're an educational center, we're a book center. We have more small presses probably than any other place in the country. I can only compare it to City Lights Bookstore in San Francisco and the Richard Hugo House, which is a literary culture center in Seattle. We do everything. There's music, there's art on the walls. They do all sorts of poetry camps in the summer for free. They have a lot of taps in the city. Like they work with Public Allies, teaching kids or teaching adults to go teach kids poetry. I mean, they really do everything. They're filling in the gaps right now, the educational gaps that we're experiencing in Milwaukee, and especially artistic gaps. Yeah. So that's my plug. And they're on Locust, 701 Locust, right off 43. And if you just Google Woodland Pattern, you'll come up with them. But they've been around 30 years. Woodland Pattern Book Center. Yep. Yeah.
I have a question for you too to tie in. Yes, I forgot. Angie. You said you didn't know you were Mexican until you were 12?
Yeah.
So before you were 12, you thought you were...
Nothing. I didn't know. Who knew?
I mean, it might take someone else to point.
You know what it was?
What?
It was sad. It was sad because I was watching a morning show, a Saturday morning show, and they had a special on the KKK. And that was my first awakening to understanding that there is a whole different world out there that I've been protected from.
So, wow. So how did you, so somebody, like your mom or your dad were.
Did they explain it to me?
That, I mean, like, yeah, because you watched the TV and it just.
Well, I knew my whole, I mean, my family was my
Oh, yeah,
family.
like that,
You know,
yeah.
it occurred to me that there was like different skin colors that would affect people's perceptions of you. I was very sheltered.
So how did you react to that? Did it make you shy? Did you
I
draw inward, or
yeah.
did it make you
I did. I went inward. I mean, I started writing at the age of 7, and I will say that I was aware of certain different levels of class because in my family we had everything from the high school dropout, pregnant teen to the college graduate, which my dad was the first one to go to college, right?
Yeah.
And we grew up in Iowa City, and we had this like wonderful experience in family student housing.
Sure.
So, you know, everyone around us was from another country, and you could smell Indian food in the air any given night. So I did go very much inward, and it took me a long time to be able to trust white people that they were haters, you know what I mean? So, and it's a terrible thing to go through. It was a terrible thing. But I came out stronger, and it gave me a better sense of, gave me a lot of stuff to write about. In my first book, there is a poem, I call it Red-Blooded Hate, and it is about that experience. Yeah, so, but, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I wanted to sort of an observation. I'm a theologian, so I was just sort of instantly caught by the name Adam.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's
Not only is it a complete sentence. I was supposed to be Ashley Fell if I was a woman, baby.
It's not the same.
No, like no. What I think is great, kind of, is that my parents were just like, we like the name. Like they had no thought about it at all. And I actually, like 5 years ago, when I learned that Googling yourself was something that you could do, I did it, and the first thing that came up was the link just said, was there death before Adam fell? And I was like, how? I don't know. So, the problem is that I don't have a good question, except I don't have a good answer to that question because it's not. No one in my family ever thought about it. I don't think.
Probably a good thing.
Yeah.
My other question is for our musicians. How did the two of you come together?
Want to tell the story?
I can, I don't know.
Well, actually, I met James when I was attending, when I was in the music program at Milwaukee Area Technical College. We both were students, and like around 2005, you know, for the 2-year plan for the associate's degree, it took me 5 years. So in the 5 years, I got to meet a lot of people, and in the beginning, James probably took one class here and there. And, you know, he was always around, and then, you know, and then like last year, you know, I called him up one day and I said, James, it was actually our first set was at Woodland Patterns, when they had the music marathon. And I needed a guitarist, and I just always remember how good he was. And I'm like, James, you want to do a gig with me? And it's like, we just have this chemistry. So that's how we started.
All right.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, this is for all of you, and you can only have one answer. This is about art. Art is either inspiration or perspiration. Which one is it for you?
Only one answer?
Only one, and you can't be on the fence.
Inspiration.
Inspiration.
I like that answer. Good.
Inspiration. Just be. Can we explain?
Elaborate.
Or is it? Because like a lot of times when I'm writing, like it's a compulsion, right? Like I feel like I need to get something out, and that's the way that I'm gonna get it out. Which requires lots of like work and perspiration, and like, you know, sometimes a poem's not right for a year, sometimes it's not right for 2 years. The one about my brother's been sitting around forever, and I just kind of got an inspiration to work on it. But I enjoy every second of it. and I might feel exhausted when I'm done, but like, I just think that if I pick up inspiration. I'm just gonna let that peter out.
Inspiration.
It depends on what you mean by art, I guess.
That's good.
Any other questions? One in the back.
What do you mean by art?
Touche.
Well, this is all art right now, and I'm perspiring.